On Last Word this week, Zinzi Mandela, the youngest daughter of Nelson Mandela, who was an anti-apartheid activist and South Africa's ambassador to Denmark. Also Charles Webb, author of the novel The Graduate, and the Polish-born violinist Ida Handel. But first, there have been many tributes to the Leeds United and England footballer Jack Charlton. One of them came from Gary Lineker.
Jack was obviously a great player, World Cup winning player as well. Great career with Leeds United, one club man. Just a very warm human being, lovely man.
Stopped there by Jackie Charlton, the centre-half, to Bobby. And now Bobby's got a chance to shoot. He does, and it's there! It's a great goal by Bobby Charlton.
Jack and his younger brother Bobby were huge figures in English football for 30 years. They were born in the Northumberland pit village of Ashington. Jack recalled a childhood in which money was in short supply.
We all shared a bed, and Bobby, Gordon, Tommy and myself used to all sleep in it together in the winter. Not always in the summer, because we also was a single bed, but in the winter it was very cold. Who slept in the middle was what you always used to fight over.
When you look at Jack Charlton's life, it's like something out of one of the boys' own stories.
The BBC's football correspondent, John Murray.
Jack Charlton was directed towards the mines, but he actually only spent one day down the mines. And after that one day said, I've seen it, I've done it, I've had enough. And he said, I don't know what I'm going to do with the rest of my life, but it won't be that.
Was Jack a bit of an awkward player when he first started out?
You know, he was a tall man. His nickname was the Giraffe. Central defender, a hard, tough player, as you had to be, I think, if you're a defender in the times that he played, but a very good player as well, good enough to be the Football Writers' Footballer of the Year.
He was part of a Leeds United team shaped by their manager, Don Revie, which had a big wave of success. Can you tell us about that team and Jack's part in it?
Actually, in the early days, there was some conjecture that perhaps Jack Charlton wasn't Don Revie's type of player, but something clicked and Don Revie decided that Jack Charlton was the man he wanted in his central defence. And he was an absolute stalwart of Don Revie's highly successful Leeds United team as it went on to be in the 60s and into the early 70s. You know, won European trophies, won the Fairs Cup a couple of times, won the FA Cup, won the League Cup, and you know, having been promoted from the second division, went on to be the league champions.
The referee looks at his watch. Any second now, it will all be over.
By the time the World Cup came round in 1966, he was very much the first choice. And at the tournament, he was part of the defence that kept clean sheets in their first 4 games and went on alongside, in the same team as his brother Bobby, to play in the final and win the World Cup together.
They think it's all over. It is now.
I've turned around and I suddenly felt totally exhausted. And I collapsed on my knees and I put my hands on my head. I think I probably did say a little prayer, like, thank you, Lord, for the result or whatever.
And that's why I talk about this being a boy's own story, to do that in the same team on that famous day in the red shirts in 1966 to win the World Cup, the Jules Rimet Trophy together. It's an amazing story.
After retiring as a player, Jack Charlton became a manager, steering Middlesbrough to promotion and changing the fortunes of Sheffield Wednesday, but struggling at Newcastle United. But his greatest achievement came when he was appointed manager of the Republic of Ireland. He took them twice to the European Championship finals and twice to the World Cup finals, reaching the quarter-final stage in 1990. These achievements made him a much-loved hero in Ireland, as the Taoiseach, Micheál Martin, acknowledged.
The hearts of the Irish people will always be with Jack Charlton, will always have a deep affection for the man, because I think he brought an honesty, he brought a robust and joyful approach to sport.
1-0! Mostly for me, the memories are around him actually managing rather than playing, and because of those epic encounters we had against each other that were so tight and so difficult in that time. And I was part of those. And he'd always have a quip on the sidelines at the end of the game, whatever it was like. But he was always very generous.
His methods, very direct method of playing, hit the big man up front, but also he took full advantage of what they called the granny rule, which meant that they scoured the English leagues for players who had Irish family links. And the blend that he was able to put together once he was able to track down these players proved to be highly successful.
I was already playing for England, and he said, I missed out on you. He said, I'm sure you would have found an Irish relative somewhere. And I said, well, I don't think so, Jack. I said, although my dad did go fishing to Ireland at least once a year, usually twice a year, since he was about 20. And he went, I'd have made that work.
His character and the way that he operated, he had a great sense of humour. It just worked with the Irish.
Now, the relationship with his brother Bobby wasn't straightforward, and I believe they did have a big falling out.
As is the case in many families, there were seemingly family tensions as they got older, particularly. So they were, close as younger brothers. And indeed, there was a story that when he was first called into the England squad, it was on the day that Leeds were playing Manchester United, and Leeds had beaten Manchester United, and he burst into the United dressing room to tell his brother the news that he'd been picked for England. But in later years, there were seemingly these family tensions, and they drifted apart, and they weren't as close as they might have been.
I have ignored him on the odd occasion, but I regret that. That's silly. That's silly. Life's too short to argue about things like that. He's still our kid, and he's still my brother, and I'm sure one of these days we'll either have a good fight or we'll have a good argument over it.
At the BBC Sports Personality of the Year in 2008, there's a lovely clip of Bobby Charlton being presented by his brother, by Jack, with the Lifetime Achievement Award.
He's always been with Bob. He's always been my younger brother. He loved his football, and he's never put it at risk in any way, shape or form. Bobby Charlton is the greatest player I've ever seen. He's my brother.
He was known for his hunting, shooting and fishing. He was very much a North Country man, his cloth caps and his wax jackets and the tweed that he wore. He had that indescribable appeal that meant that he did cross those borders beyond the sport that he was involved in.
John Murray on Jack Charlton, who's died aged 85.